Hey everyone, welcome to Tennien's Corner. I'm Jesse, and here's my review of Hayao Miyazaki's new film, The Boy and the Heron, or what it's called in Japan, How Do You Live? This movie topped the domestic charts on its opening weekend, and that was wonderful to see. And it was also pretty awesome to see another Japanese title in the top 10, Godzilla Minus One. And so, yeah, I made a little bit of history there. This is actually like Godzilla Minus One, again, a period piece. The setting of the movie is World War II in 1943. A 13-year-old boy, Mahito, faces a great tragedy and loss when his mother is killed in a hospital fire in Tokyo. He then evacuates with his father to the countryside. His father is an aircraft factory owner. Then his father remarries his mom's younger sister. Mahito encounters a strange anthropomorphized gray heron who leads him to an abandoned, decrepit tower which was sealed after its architect, his grand uncle, disappeared within. Being a longtime Miyazaki fan, I mean, his work for me, just on a personal level, has been such an inspiration, really, since I was a teenager. For me, Miyazaki is really one of our modern myth makers. He has such a gift of storytelling in his ability to understand childhood and the child's imagination and not talk down to it. So that's what makes him a great storyteller, his ability to connect with our humanity and tell really resonant stories that really resonate, across cultures and across different ages and age groups and demographics. And that's why I call him a myth maker. I went to see the English dubbed version of this film, and they also had available the Japanese language version. And generally, with Japanese animation and anime, my preference is the Japanese version always. But in this case, I was intrigued enough by the English voice cast that I chose that version. And the reason for that is because I kind of just wanted to bask in the visuals and not focus as much on like the text. And I felt like if I saw like the Japanese language version, I would be focusing too much on the actual like subtitles and less so on the visuals. And so for my first experience of this movie, I really wanted to engage visually with this film. I want to talk about the gray heron in this movie. In the English dub version, it's voiced by Robert Pattinson, and I didn't even realize that was him when I was watching this. In fact, I knew Mark Hamill did one of the voices, and I just assumed that was Mark Hamill at first until I saw the credits, and I was like, oh wow, that's Robert Pattinson. And I must say, he does a wonderful job. Like, I couldn't recognize that was his voice. And so in terms of like a character performance and becoming a completely different character, I thought he did a great job. It has been mentioned that this film is a coming of age story, as many of Miyazaki's films are. Here, this character, Mahito, has some real like darkness within him and dealing with harsh realities of war and the loss of a parent, similar to My Neighbor Totoro, where you have in that film also children dealing with the potential loss of a parent. In My Neighbor Totoro, it's a sick mother, and then the kids in that film journey into this enchanted magical forest. Here too, you have that same kind of structure and arc where Mahito, this young boy, is dealing with a great loss, great tragedy, and then has to come to terms with it by also going into this magical fairy world, this alternative reality. You often feel, at least for me, I don't feel like he's talking down to children ever. I always feel like he's doing justice to childhood and showing the complexity of children and recognizing that, but also showing that and reflecting that in the child's fantasy world. The fantasy world here in this film kind of reflects the complexities of our human experience. It reflects our creative and destructive potential. I think that's what's very unique about The Boy and the Heron, as well as Miyazaki's films generally, is that fantasy is not treated as this trivial escape from reality. Fantasy here is a way to engage us more deeply and connect us more deeply with our existence and with the complexities of our existence, and also create like a richly symbolically textured world of symbols and images that will profoundly resonate at like a deep psychological level. There are a lot of nice fairy tale touches here too, references to kind of fairy tale elements. When Mahito moves into their country estate, they're attended by several old maids, and the character designs for these maids are utterly grotesque. And there's 7 of them, so I thought that might have been a reference to Snow White and the 7 Dwarves. The fantasy fairy tale world here can be pretty dark and disturbing at times. There's elements of horror, and it's not always just this place of wonder and enchantment and magic. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but in this fantasy fairy tale world, there is a kingdom of anthropomorphized parakeets who eat people. They cook and eat people. Also goes into what I was saying about the way fantasy works here and the way that this fairy tale world is depicted, that this enchanted realm of the child's imagination is equally shadowed by mortality, death, finitude. It has a darkness to it. And in that way, also is similar and resonates with classic fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel, where you have the child's fear of being eaten and consumed, the fear of the child's ego being dissolved and consumed, and that loss of identity. This movie had some nice little moments in between the broader strokes of the narrative. And when I watch a Miyazaki film, some of my favorite moments in his films are the smaller moments, the more intimate, personal moments. For example, there's a scene in the movie where Mahito is eating this piece of bread with like layers of jam spread all over it, and it's so much jam that it's like spilling over, dripping off the bread. The film kind of pauses and lets you share that moment with the character and enjoy that moment. That also goes into his love of the natural world, this very kind of elemental connection with nature that the characters in his films have with nature, and a general sense, almost like mystical sense of kinship with nature, like this ecological connection with the environment and the natural world is seeped into every frame and texture and detail in the film. And all his films have that effect on me, that they give me this sense of an animistic sense of nature, where everything in nature has a soul, whether it's a plant, tree, a rock, any kind of inanimate object is ensouled and has a spirit. And I think that develops very much out of the Japanese religion Shinto. And Shinto has within it a very similar kind of animistic sense of the world, where everything has a spirit, everything has a soul. If I were to criticize something, and this is not exactly a criticism per se, but you know, Miyazaki sets a certain kind of expectation for what his films are going to be like, and that they're going to deliver that sense of wondrous expectancy, adventurous optimism and idealism. And there is that element there here in this film, The Boy and the Heron, but it feels, I would say, a little more theoretical. That I understood some of what Miyazaki, I think, was trying to say in terms of like the themes, but I understood them more of in an intellectual sense while watching it, and at times I didn't really feel it emotionally. Also, I want to mention that Miyazaki brings back composer Joe Hisaishi to do the music, the score. The understated quality to the music here very much is in keeping with the overall atmosphere, ambiance of the movie. This may not be, in terms of rewatchability, one that I'll revisit as of now, as much as some of his earlier works. I will definitely say that I will be watching this again. I am so grateful to have been able to see this in the theater again. It was a phenomenal experience, a visual journey. Even though, like I said, I was experiencing it more on a theoretical level and intellectually detached, there was still so much imagery and rich, sumptuous imagery to take in. The beautiful hand drawn animation as well. I love that he went back to that and really gives it this visceral immediacy. At any rate, I feel kind of spoiled having been able to see a Miyazaki film on screen as well as a Japanese Toho Godzilla film all within the same week, back to back. That's just been so incredibly amazing, I have to say. I don't think it's exaggeration to say a dream come true, because I remember back to the time when I was a kid when anime wasn't widely available. Particularly Japanese language versions of anime wasn't widely available. Films like Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke were giving limited releases, and I had to have to drive an hour or more to see the film. And then they only showed and screened the film for one night. So if you didn't make that, you wouldn't be able to see the movie. And to switch from then to now, where you can have these films open widely, receive such critical acclaim, and have such success internationally. So I couldn't be more pleased to end the year on that note. But yeah, do let me know if you've gotten a chance to see The Boy and the Heron, and whether you like the film or maybe you didn't like it, which is fine, or if you're somewhere in between. And yeah, let me know in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.